For generations, people believed modern Germans descended directly from the fierce ancient tribes described by Roman writers, the Cherusci, the Suebi, the Goths, warriors of the forest, bound by an unbroken bloodline stretching back into deep prehistory. It was a powerful idea, a nation rooted in one continuous biological past. But when scientists finally found a way to test that idea against hard evidence, what they discovered didn't just surprise historians, it quietly shifted the way we understand identity itself. Here is something most people don't realize about the ancient world. Identity back then had nothing to do with genetics. It was built on language, loyalty, and culture. Tribes formed and dissolved. Groups merged and split apart. A name could survive long after the people who first carried it had changed completely. Our Roman authors even hinted at this themselves. They wrote about shifting coalitions, migrating groups, and tribes absorbing outsiders. The picture they painted was far more complicated than a single pure bloodline, and that complication is exactly where this story begins. For nearly 200 years, historians were split into two clear camps, and neither side could fully defeat the other. One side believed in continuity. They argued that the same populations had lived in Central Europe for thousands of years, settlements overlapped, place names endured, traditions seemed to evolve locally. To them, modern Germans were the direct descendants of Iron Age Germanic tribes. The other side disagreed. They believed Europe had been shaped by repeated waves of migration long before the Germanic era. Both sides had real evidence. While neither side had the final answer. Pottery could show how people lived. Graves could reveal rituals. Ancient texts could record names and battles. But none of it could answer the one question that actually mattered. Who were these people, biologically? Without a way to test ancient remains directly, the debate simply stopped moving. Both sides were stuck. And then, in the early 21st century, something happened that no one in this debate had seen coming. A new scientific tool arrived, and it did not just break the deadlock. It rewrote the question entirely. Scientists began extracting DNA from ancient skeletons buried across Europe. Stone Age hunter-gatherers, early farmers, Bronze Age communities, individuals from regions later associated with Germanic tribes. For the first time, researchers could compare the genetic profiles of people separated by thousands of years. The method was careful and precise. Tiny samples were taken from teeth or dense bone. DNA was sequenced and compared across time. Patterns of ancestry began to emerge, revealing connections no historian or archaeologist had ever been able to see before. What they found next was not what anyone expected. Researchers compared ancient Central Europeans from before the Germanic era with individuals from the Iron Age and then with modern populations in Germany today. They used control groups, early farmers who had migrated into Europe from Anatolia, steppe pastoralists who had swept in during the Bronze Age, and the much older hunter-gatherers who had lived in Europe since the Ice Age. They weren't looking for languages or tribal names. When they were looking for biological ancestry, the deep genetic threads that connect populations across millennia. And the results were unexpected in a very specific way. Modern Germans do share ancestry with people who lived in Central and Northern Europe during the Iron Age. But those Iron Age populations were not a single isolated group. They were already the product of multiple earlier migrations and mixtures. Their DNA carried strong components from steppe herders who had entered Europe thousands of years before the first Germanic tribes appeared. It also showed ancestry from early farming communities that had spread from the Near East even earlier. And beneath all of that were traces of Europe's ancient hunter-gatherers. The people behind Germanic identity were already deeply mixed. Saying by the time Germanic languages and identities began to form, there was no unique, pure Germanic genetic signature waiting to be found. What we call Germanic appears to have been largely a cultural and linguistic identity, one that spread across populations who already carried diverse ancestral roots. The idea of a single unbroken biological line from ancient Germanic tribes to modern Germans did not hold up. What survived was something more complex and more human. But even this major breakthrough left serious questions behind, and those questions take the story somewhere that science alone cannot follow. DNA can show movement and mixture. It can reveal who was related to whom across time. But it cannot tell us exactly how a language spreads or why a group begins to call itself a new name. Well, we still don't know precisely how Proto-Germanic first emerged, or how quickly it moved across different communities. We don't know whether small elite groups shaped larger populations, or whether cultural change moved through trade and contact. Science revealed the biological story. The cultural story remains partly in shadow. And that shadow points towards something much larger. What this discovery changes is not just the history of one region. Across Europe and across the world, languages and cultures have often spread faster than genes. The ancestors of modern Germans were not one isolated tribe standing outside history. They were the descendants of farmers, steppe herders, and ice age survivors, shaped by thousands of years of movement, encounter, and change. And that same layered reality runs beneath the identity of nearly every nation on Earth.